Hey, let me fix that. Okay. Um, let's talk a little bit today about the symptoms of having a relationship with somebody who is a narcissist and who clinically would have narcissistic personality disorder rather than just narcissistic traits, obviously. So what I've come to find out is being in a relationship with a narcissist, all depending on whether or not you are a main source of supply or a secondary source of supply. It tends to be almost like a disease, like a chronic illness or a disease, or it has like a global symptoms that come along with being with somebody like that. It seems that a lot of the victims tend to suffer from these symptoms from being with them. So they are literally a disease in your life. So let's talk a little bit about there's a little. They're going to draw supply from everywhere. But when we're talking about intimate sources of supply, girlfriends or sex partners, whatever, there's kind of like 3 or 4 categories. So a narcissist, not all narcissists are going to have a primary source of supply. This is not all narcissists, okay? Not all narcissists have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. But the ones that do have a primary source of supply, being a girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband, whatever, that is going to be the person that is exhibiting the most severe symptoms of narcissistic relations. Okay, so I'm maybe I'll call it like the narcissist disease. We catch the disease like a cold. Then you have the secondary source of supply, and this tends to happen quickly, suddenly, abruptly, and the symptoms continue on after the narcissist discards you or you've discarded them. So that is the secondary source of supply, and they're usually maybe what we call a side piece, side chick, a fling, or an affair of some sort. This is somebody that the narcissist does not, I mean, they don't value anybody, let's be real, but they value people on a level of value for them to take advantage of. So they don't have as much, I don't even want to use the word respect because that wouldn't be applicable for a narcissist, but maybe regarding, I would use the word regard. Their primary source of supply, they regard, okay? They regard for their certain traits they might have, educational background. So they're kind of proud of them in a weird way. They regard them. They can admit that person has these on certain days. It'll be certain days to certain people, but they can admit, that their primary source of supply might have these traits. The secondary source of supply is there primarily because a narcissist sees them fit enough to provide supply to him. So secondary sources of supply usually are providing like exhilarating time, sex, out in public, friends, connections, a secret life outside of their home, or if they don't have a home, like a wife or anything, it's in the excitement, the rush of somebody new, the rush of meeting new people, the rush of a new life. They always want a new life. That's one thing they seem to all have in common. They just always want something new, a new life. They get bored easily. So that's your secondary source of supply. Then we have third sources of supply. These are usually secondary sources, but they're kind of like secretive. They're never seen in public with these ones. These are usually quick flings, meet at a hotel, have sex, goodbye, let's meet in the car, let's, what are you doing tonight? Oh, you're going to this club. Is there somebody famous there? Okay, I'll meet you there. So it's very fast. It's very rigid. It's very sucking, extracting the supply and out. Okay, it's usually because Their secretive third sources are they have a lot of shame about being with the third sources. They might not be as attractive, or they might not have money or a car, or they might be too young or too old, or there's all these factors. So I'll go through the symptoms of, let's start with the secondary supply, because I think that's the most common victim, is secondary sources of supply, or secondary primary sources of supply, which I know that doesn't make sense, but you might have been the primary source of supply at the time, right? But if they didn't have a wife or a girlfriend, you're classified secondary, but you were primary because there wasn't the home, the wife, the girlfriend, or whatever. So at the time you were primary, but you kind of get the same treatment as the secondary might get. So the secondary source of supply is going to exhibit these type of symptoms, okay? You will have a loss of self. You might have a loss of values, a loss of beliefs. You might take on the narcissist's beliefs. You will have a jaded relationship with your friends. You will be depleted of your self-confidence and self-esteem. You will lose sight of your goals and ambitions. You will have an inability to function as you would on a daily basis prior to meeting the narcissist. You will have sexual a deformed sexual outlook. So your sexuality may be taken from you. Usually secondary sources tend to feel that they feel a misconstrued perception of sex after the narcissist has discarded them. You will feel, once a discard happens, depression, anxiety, worthlessness, very low self-esteem, self-doubt. You will feel, while being with one, crazy, bamboozled, duped, hurt, pain, anguish, a lot of, you'll feel the effects of gaslighting as well. STDs are also a symptom of narcissistic personality disorder relationships. They tend to run very high because they do take part in illicit and very dangerous sexual activities, and because of their impulse control issues, they oftentimes have unsafe sex, or they might have sex with both genders or group sex. It's very disturbing, I know. So these are kind of like the symptoms that the person, secondary sources of supply, will feel. And usually those relationships, I don't want to put a number on it, but I would really think anywhere from like 2 weeks to a maximum, and I mean pushing it, like 5 months, okay? And it's a whirlwind roller coaster during that time. Now the primary source of supply is going to feel the most symptoms of dating a narcissist. And they're going to feel the most number and the most intense. So the primary source of supply may, STD is one of them, worthlessness, undesired. They'll feel a loss of self, so they literally tend to lose who they are as a core person. Loss of values, beliefs, morals, ethics, integrity are all down the drain. They will feel suicidal. They will have lackluster performance at work. They will have no drive to live, so not necessarily suicidal, but they just don't want to continue on with life. They will feel ugly, ashamed. They will feel crazy. They will feel manic and depressed and sad. They feel isolated, so alone. They feel abandonment because they don't have friends and family around. especially if you've been with a narcissist for a prolonged period of time. They will feel useless and not worthy enough, and not good enough, and like nothing they do is good enough. They will exhibit signs of PTSD and fear. I mean, all of these are symptoms of primary source of supply, but to an intense, immense amount. So it's like being sucked into, it's like walking, in a forest and being sucked into a hole and getting stuck in that hole, and there's nobody there to get you out. So you just learn to survive in that hole, and surrounding you is this beautiful forest, and you can see the forest, but you're in that hole. And that's kind of how it feels like being with a person with NPD for a prolonged period of time, and even a short period of time. Once they trap you and lock you into their daily routine, that's when the most damage is done. Third sources of supply. These are the fly-by-night, hit it and quit it. Go to a bar, go to a club, go somewhere really quick and whatever. Those kind of feel bewildered, maybe confused, because oftentimes they'll reach out to the narcissist and they won't respond back. They won't call back until they're ready. So they kind of feel used. They feel used and abused, but exhilarated and exciting. It depends on what type of personality the third source has, because for some third sources, the narcissist might not even affect them if they kind of have the same type of tendencies and views on sexual relationships. Sometimes they aren't even affected, but the ones that do have some humane qualities or haven't adjusted to this this role, they do feel those things, like being used and abused, not valued, but they engage in the illicit behavior anyway. So that's a little bit about what I thought some of the symptoms of being with somebody with NPD is. Again, it is just like having a disease. The person is a disease in your life. And the best thing to do with a disease is cure from it. And the best way to cure from a narcissist is to go no contact. I do want to stress that. I do not like hearing or seeing women who have endured years and years and years of a relationship with a narcissist only to be discarded or to have to divorce a narcissist after 20 years is a lot worse than creating your boundaries now and going no contact now while you still have your youth or you still have years ahead of you. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. If you could, leave a comment down below about your experiences and what kind of symptoms of the disease, the diseased person that you've actually had to deal with that I missed on. Okay, thank you.